So this is my Lolth Spider Queen, or Lilith Spider Queen. I like to call her Lilith because it sounds more feminine instead of Lolth. Lol. Alright. Board control deck, so obviously we got 4 copies of the Spider Queen herself. I go to this 4 copies of her, 4 Mind Flare, or 4 Grafted Identity, 2 Dragon Turtle, 2 Callous Blood Mage, 4 Curse of Leeches, 4 Vampire Spawn, 4 Poison the Cup, 4 Into the Royal, 2 Covetous Castaway. Did I say 4? 2. 2 Silver Raven, 2 Sanitarium Skeleton, and 2 Shambling Ghast. We have 4 islands. Alright, so 4 islands, 4 swamps, 4 clear water pathway, and murk water pathway. Just nice to have that type of land. Ports of Carfel. This is our reanimation card, so really awesome. Used it a lot. Pro tip, obviously. Consider using this on your opponent's turn, especially using this in combination with Mind Flare, so you can steal one of your opponent's creatures to use it, obviously, as defense. Same goes for like Dragon Turtle, to be able to tap down one of your opponent's creatures, so that way they can't attack with it. So that's that. There's other options. I even used the effect to bring back Vampire Spawn during my opponent's turn, and was able to finish the game off that way. Double checking. So this looks low. Oh, okay. I'm like, it looks a little off. Like, there it is. Because I had Curse of Leeches. I thought the card was missing. It's actually there. But this is not organized the way I prefer to organize it. So Curse of Leeches, did his thing. My opponent lost a life. I gained life, so was able to get them down to 1 life and finish them off. That was a cool trick. It's a really good card. Reliable reanimation, so that becomes in handy. And then we have 4 Shipwrecked, of course. So let's go through the lands real quick. Obviously, this allows you to choose to play as a water source or a swamp source. So if you're 1 black mana short, you can choose the murk water pathway part or the clear water pathway part if you need water. So it comes in handy. I had 6 swamps and 6 islands, but then I found out about this card. I'm like, alright, let me cut it down to 4 and 4, and add 4 of these, so that way I have variety. So it just helps with the mana fixing, right? Since it's a 2-color deck. Ports of Carfel, just a good card. It's a blue source, and it can reanimate, so obviously that's why we use it. And then Shipwreck Marsh. It's nice to play it on turn 3 and beyond, because it doesn't come into play tab, and it can produce blue or black, which this deck, uses. So it's another blue-black source for more mana fixing. The minimum energy you'll need is like 2 black, 2 blue, so I always want to keep that around. Keep, 2 black, 2 blue around. Alright. We have Silver Ravens. We have Shambling Ghast. These are, as well as our Sanitarium Skeleton. These are our 1-drops. This helps us one sanitarium skeleton allows us to stall, because obviously we use it as a chump block, or we use it to block attacks, and it's an early game block, especially against decks like red decks that have 1/1 haste for 1 red mana, right? So this can kill it and stay on the field to be able to block any other attack. So this is just good against that, like Goblin decks or something. Just good in general because of the fact that you can return it from your graveyard to your hand for 1 black, 2 of anything, and then you pay 1 black just to play it. So for a total of 4 energy, so 2 blacks, 2 of anything, you can use this over and over again. Plus, it's good sack outlet. Sacrifice it for Grafted Envy and any other card effects similar to that. Also good, discard outlet if your opponent, ever ends up discarding stuff, or you go up against a mill deck. That's why I also have this in the deck, Castaway, because he has Disturb. So that way, if I'm going up against a mill deck, at least I have stuff in the graveyard I can bring back by itself. Plus, you having Ports of Kafel helps me reanimate stuff from the grave, so that helps deal, with mill decks. So built-in, anti-mill strategies, and so that's pretty good. And there's just good cards in general. So that's what we use that for. Then we have Raven and Shambling Gas. These are for, because the thing I always try to do is not mulligan my hand. So if I have a 2-land hand, I try not to mulligan. If you are going to mulligan, you want to do it a maximum of 2 times, no more than that. But these cards, not only being nice and cheap, good little chump blockers, they also serve mana purposes. Because if you have a 2-land hand and for some reason you don't draw lands for a while, and this is a 20-land deck, so you have 40 cards and 20 lands. So most people play 24. I play 20. I do the 20-20-20 concept. So to make up for that, I know it's in this game, I get 2-land hands a lot. Normally in real life when I shuffle it and draw, I tend to get 3 to 4 land hands. But in this game, like MTG Arena, I tend to get 2-land hands a lot. But I don't mulligan. So these cards help with that. Again, they're cheap. You can get them out early, get some early game damage before your opponent starts building up value engine, right? But also is the fact that Shambling Gas, for example, has the effect that when it dies, you either -1/-1 from a target creature, which comes in handy using this against a 2/2 attacker. Because you block the 2/2 attacker, deal 1 damage from battle, and then 1 from this effect, and now you took down a 2/2 creature. Sometimes you can use this to block a creature, right? That's strong, and then kill a weak creature, especially if it's a creature that has like some type of life gaining ability or death touch or something similar to that, or is even indestructible, right? So this is good spot removal. So it serves those purposes, but mainly I use this as obviously a blocker to get, and sometimes I attack open, my opponent kills it, to get the treasure token. Because a treasure token makes mana, right? Sacrifice it and create 1 mana of any color. So you can always guarantee you have black or blue for whatever you want to play. And this just, in a way, helps you ramp. So it's kind of like an Land of War elf in a way, but it has to die to get that value out of it. So that's how I use it. Silver Raven, pretty much the same thing. It's a 1/1 flyer, so it's useful against decks that have a lot of flyers, like Angel decks or something like that, or Dragon decks. So decks that have a lot of flyers, it's good to have cheap 1 energy chump blockers, right, to block off those flyers. But the other plus being a flyer means you can attack with it, and it'll be hard for your opponent to block unless they have flyers, right? So it serves as being unblockable, but it also serves to block your opponent's flyers. And then, of course, when it enters the battlefield, you scry 1. So you look at the top card of your deck, either keep it there or put it at the bottom of your deck. And what I do with this specifically is I use this to cycle the top card of my deck to try to get to a land. Because remember, if I draw a 2-land hand, and then I play a land, right, and then next turn draw, and I still don't see a land, I'll play and let's say I already have, obviously a 2-land hand, so I would have a second land, and then I will make sure that hopefully the land, the land is blue, right? So I can play this and look at the top card, and if it's not a land, I put it immediately at the bottom of my deck. Even if it's a good card, it's useless to me if I can't play it, right? I need lands, so these cards to help me stall long enough, cycle, try to get to the lands, because without 3 or more lands, it's gonna be hard to play this deck. Just saying. Keep that in mind. This is not a 2-land deck. This is a 3 or 4 land deck, that's for sure. So then we have this. I originally had, you'll see in the gameplays, I already uploaded the gameplay video, that I had Overwhelmed Archivist. It was an okay card. It just didn't do much of anything else. Draw this card wasn't that useful of an effect. But this card, it's cheaper to play from the hand, so 1 blue, 1 of anything, it's a 1/3. So it having 3 toughness is useful. It can unblock a good amount of things before it does die. When it dies, you mill 3 cards, which can, help you fill up your drop with stuff that hopefully you can reanimate with your Port of Corel. But, of course, the fact that it has Disturb, so for 5, you can bring it back as a 3/4 flyer, which is better than bringing back a 2/1 flyer for 4 mana. So I'll pay that 1 extra for a 3/4, because a 3/4 would be more useful, especially if I have to block 3/3 flyers or something like that. So this comes in handy in that regard. Being 3 power is obviously decent, do some good damage, but it also has the ability that when it enters the battlefield, you may shuffle up to 3 target cards from your graveyard into your library. So I could recycle some stuff. I could potentially put stuff back in my deck that I could use later on in the game. I could recycle stuff, because a lot of times I have certain key cards get destroyed, and it's like, man, only if I could bring them back, right? And ironically, this card has the ability to at least put them back. For example, if I want my Liliths back in my deck, put her back in the deck. If I want my Curses of Leeches, which is one of my main win cons, burn cards, whatever you want to call it. It's one of my main cards. Definitely put this in pretty much every deck that I use black mana. This is definitely a staple for me. It's a really good card. So it itself is a win con. Of course, she's a token engine plus a draw engine, so I use her -3 and her +0 a lot. You'll see it in the gameplays. Clearly, she's an automatic value engine, and she's in most of my decks that have black mana. And of course, if I use that blue mana, why not Mind Flayer, right? Gotta beat my opponent with their own power. So this is the kind of stuff I want to recycle with this. So decent card, and again, if it ends up in the drop from being discarded, milled, whatever, I could always bring it back and get some value out of it. And again, the up to 3 target cards from my graveyard into my library helps going up against a mill deck. So being able to put stuff back is always useful. Then we have Into the Royals. I use this in so many different ways. I can use it to get rid of a planeswalker, or to reset a planeswalker. Let's say a planeswalker is just one turn away from activating its ultimate. I can just use this, bounce it to my opponent's hand, and cause them to restart all over. There's the fact that obviously I can use this to bounce something that's attacking me, especially something with haste. Just bounce it back to their hand. I use this to stall my opponent. Sometimes, like I said, if I have a 2-land hand, I'll use this for 2 energy and bounce a creature they have to slow them down, because they have to replay, and I take advantage of summoning sickness. So I can stall for a couple turns until I get lands, to start playing my hands, right? Start playing my deck. And another thing I use is evasive. Saying wrong. To evade. I use this to evade stuff. I use this to protect some of my key cards. in case I have something I want to keep. Let's say, for example, I use Mind Flayer to take one of my opponent's creatures, and they're going to destroy this with like a card effect. Then what I could do is use Into the Royal and bounce this back to my hand. You know, do stuff with it. Another thing I could do is play this, grab one of my opponent's creatures, right? Use that creature against them. Then let's say it dies as a result of battle, like it dies with another creature. I can use Into Royal, bounce it back to my hand, so I can use it again. So it just helps me reuse some of my Into the Battle cards. Plus, it helps me avoid certain things. Something I could do is, let's say I have this. I've done this before. I have this in play. I declare it as a blocker against a really strong attacker. Then use Into Royal to bounce this back to my hand. Instead of bouncing the attacker back to the hand, bounce this back to my hand. So that way the battle will be cancelled. And then next turn I could play this, gain 2 life, and make my opponent lose 2 life. And it could be the difference between winning and losing. Especially if I combine it with Curses of Leeches. That right there will give me 3 life, and my opponent loses 3 life. So that could mean the difference between winning and losing. So this is how you use it. So this is a very versatile utility card for me. Has the kicker abilities. I could pay an extra blue and extra white color, and then draw a card on top of that. So for 4 mana, I can bounce something back to the other's hand, reset something. I could even use this on my own Planeswalker. Once I get, like, let's say I use her for her -3 ability to make 3 tokens, or no, I use her for a 0 ability, right, to draw a card and lose a life, then bounce her back to my hand, replay her, then activate her -3 ability, and then get the 2 tokens. I can get a draw and a token. So I could do something like that. So it's just about being creative. Or I could do the ability twice. I can play her, make 2 tokens, then the following turn bounce her back to my hand, play her again, -3 again, and be able to create some stuff. So it's just about how creative you are with the card. That it makes it very versatile. The fact that it can hit anything other than lands makes it very versatile. Very good Swiss Army knife type card. We have Dragon Turtle. It has Flash. There are some other cards similar to this, but this has Flash. Sorry, this has Flash. So I like to save this and play it on my opponent's turn, especially if they play something big that has flying, which could be a or something that has haste. So they play something on their turn that has haste. I'm like, all right, I'll play this to stop that, to tap down your creatures. You can't attack with me, because the idea is just to get extra turns. Extra turns means extra chances of winning, extra chances of playing land, extra ability to activate certain effects like your Planeswalker or something like that. Extra turns is always awesome. So stuff like this that helps you get them extra turns, puts in work. It's a 3/5 body. Obviously, you can bring this back from the drop and get its effect off. One of the things I like to do is play this to tap down and freeze, one of my opponent's creatures that I plan to steal later with Grafted Identity, and then I combine it with Grafted Identity. My turn. This will still be still be tapped. So then I'll play this for 4. So I could play this on turn 3, for example. Play this on turn 4, sacrificing Dragon Turtle, and take my opponent's creature, and go from there. So that's essentially those 2 have. Then we have Callous Blood Mage. I used to have, what's his name? Something corrupted Bishop or something like that. No, yeah, something like that. Anyway, yeah, Jaren the Corrupted Bishop or something like that. But I'm using this instead. Both serve the same purpose, token generating, but this has 2 other abilities. I either draw a card and lose a life, which I have no problem losing life because I can always gain it back. I do have some light link abilities in this deck. And of course, Curse of Leeches, it's the main way I gain life, so not a problem. sacrifice life to draw, but also has the ability to exile target player's graveyard in case I won't against a deck that mills itself. So I'll definitely take advantage of using this against that type of deck. So there's graveyard hate, as you know, I can use this as a draw engine. Plus, it has the ability to create a token, and the token, when it dies, I gain a life. So the token has an added benefit. Of course, I can use the token on block. I can use Blood Mage to block, so I can block 2 attacks plus gain a life, which could potentially keep me in the game longer. As long as I still have 1 life at the end of my opponent's turn, still have a fighting chance, right? That's the goal. Plus, I could just sacrifice a token for crafted identity and still trigger the token's ability to give me life. So I've done that a couple times. So that's the use for that. Curse of Leeches. You enchant your opponent with this at the as this permanent transfer to so leeches attach it to the player. Yeah, okay. So its effect is at the beginning of enchanted player's upkeep, they lose 1 life and you gain 1 life, and this is day bound. So once you play it, it turns into day, and you equip this to your opponent, of course, and you gain a life and your opponent loses life. Ironically, I could equip this myself, but that'd be dumb because I lose a life then gain a life, so that'd be weird. Obviously, it's best to equip to your opponent, which is what I do. But then, if I don't play, let me see, just give me a second. There we go. Alright, so if it becomes, as it becomes a transform all night permanence, nightbound permanence, if a player casts no spells during their own turn, it becomes night next turn. Night on their next turn. So if it was night next turn. It becomes night of the next player's turn. So, for example, if I don't play a spell on my turn, like a creature or a sorcery instance or something, then it'll turn to night on my opponent's turn, which means I would switch over to. I'll switch over into my Leeching Lurker, which is a 4/4 with lifelink. Which is nice, 4/4 with lifelink. I tend to get a lot of life from that, and sometimes my opponent will play something which will change the turn from night to day. It comes back to me, so then I go back into my Curse of Leeches form and equip it back to my opponent, and then I start the cycle of gaining life and making my opponent lose life. Yeah, I like that. It's just nice to have that added ability. Ultimately, all I care about is the Curse of Leeches part, the whole enchantment part, but it's nice to get the 4/4 lifelink creature coming in from time to time, especially when you have 2 of these. 2 of them on the field means you gain 2 life every time your opponent loses 2 life every turn, and then you have the potential of having 2 4/4s ready to attack your opponent, and that's always good. So that's a potential 8 life gain and potential 8 damage on your opponent. Vampire Spawn. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. This deck is obviously started off basically as a life drain deck, but I decided to take that out of the deck's name, right, and just went focus on it's board control. The life gaining is just an aspect, the play style, but controlling my opponent's board, making decisions on what they get to keep on the field, what they don't get to keep. And since I'm always focusing on taking their strongest creatures and get rid of other creatures, or destroy their strongest creatures and then taking their weakest creatures, or destroying their strongest creatures and then just beating down on the weakest creatures with my creatures, that kind of stuff. It's like a lot of board manipulation. So it's like board control. I spend a lot of time going back and forth with my opponent, but there is some life gain, life drain abilities in the deck, so that's still a factor. And this is, a remnant of that After then we have Poison the Cup. It's a 3-mana instant. Destroy target creature. If the spell was for Toad, a Scry 2. Typically, I will pay the foretell cost to save it for a couple reasons. One, it just lowers the cost of the card by 1 mana for later use for when I need it. And the other thing is it takes it out of my hand, so that way if I go, if somebody's starting to play discard effects or start looking at my hand trying to discard stuff like Caesar or something like that, for example, like they're trying to take like hate destruction cards, kill spells as it were from my hand, then this will help me save and protect my kill spells at the right time, right moment. So that's always nice. So I got stuff that I could play even though it's not directly in my hand. So that's what I do with it. And the scrying is very important because we all know that, manipulating the top cards of your deck is very important to guarantee that your draws are always good. May your draws be forever in your favors, and I always make sure I do that with these scry effects in my deck. We know drawing is better, but in some situations, drawing might not be a good idea. I'm not against draws, right? So I'm not against cards that draw. Obviously, I use Interroyal, which draw. I'd rather draw than scry, right? But scry has its use. But I do use scry effects to manipulate the top card of my deck, and then use Lolth to draw the cards. So that does make up for scry, draw, scry, draw, scry. Grafted Identity, just it's an enchantment that lets us take control of the creature, and it gives it +1/+1 power. But we as an additional cost to play this card, we gotta sacrifice a creature. Typically, we sacrifice tokens. I've used this as a removal spell in a way, because I would do something like, well, I would take my opponent's. I use Minecraft to take one of my opponent's creatures. But if my opponent has a red or black mana based deck, there's a high probability they'll have kill spells, right? Lightning bolt, shock, stuff like that. Things that can kill this 3/3. Some creature removal spells. Then I would use Grafted Identity to sacrifice the creature I stowed with Mind Flayer. That way, my opponent will have to use a card that destroys enchantment instead of trying to use a card to kill a creature to try to get rid of whatever I steal and have control of. So it's I have 8 cards in the deck that lets me take my opponent's creatures. I've been in scenarios where my opponent literally had a counter for my creature, for my Mind Flayer, and then another scenario my opponent had a counter specifically for my Grafted Identity. I'm like, damn, the odds of having the counters to specifically counter these specific card types. One specific counter enchantment, one specific counter a creature. Creature counter spells are not that uncommon, obviously, but it was just the irony that they had it at the right time, and it was cheap too. It's like cost them like 1 or 2 mana. Just the irony that it was just the right counter for the right moment, which is very suspicious. And it happened multiple times on this game, so very suspicious that when I was like, alright, I'm going to play this, bang, they have a counter specifically to counter enchantment spells. Like, damn, the odds of that. And they only have 1 card in the hand, so the odds of having that 1 card for this one moment, right? And they're more likely just drew it. Like, they just drew it, I just drew this, I want to play this, and then they had a counter. But I'm not going into my MTG Arena's conspiracy theories. Anyway, so, obviously good card. And then we have Mind Flayer. Like I said, enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature for as long as you control Mind Flayer. So I always try not to attack with Mind Flayer because I don't want it to die, because I don't want my opponent to get their creature back. So there's that. And of course, I bring it back with the effect of Shipwrecked Marsh on my opponent's turn. Get some little control action on my opponent's turn is always a nice trick. already explained Spider Queen's ability. She has the whenever a creature you control dies, that includes tokens, put a loyalty counter on her. And it also counts your opponent's creatures. So even when your opponent's creatures die, you get counters, which is very powerful because that means you can always afford the -3 effect to make two 2/1 black spider creature tokens with menace and reach. That's two really good effects. Reach, obviously, it helps, makes it easy for you to block flyers, which comes in handy plenty of times. Especially using the tokens to protect her long enough to keep making tokens, to keep getting value out of her, right? And then the tokens, like I said, when they die, she gets count markers, so she kind of gets most of her markers back. At least 2 markers she'll get back from both spiders getting destroyed. And then menace. They're 2/1s with menace, which is very good. It's almost like saying they're unblockable. They could be a win con under the right conditions. So there's that. And I've never used this -8, but she has the emblem ability, where you make an emblem by -8. Whenever an opponent is dealt combat damage by 1 or more creatures you control, if that player lost less than 8 life this turn, they lose life equal to the difference. Which is decent, but never really use that effect. She's just there for the token and the draw. And of course, the +0 ability, you draw a card, lose a life, which it's not a problem to lose that life because we have Vampire Spawn and we have Curse of Leeches gaining us life. So, and of course, leeches, lurkers have lifelink, so we can always gain the life back. And if we steal, of course, because we have crafted Identity and Mind Flare, we still have battle cards. Creature cards that have lifelink or have effects that when you play a battle card, you gain life. So you make the tokens from Spider Queen, right, Lilith, and then gain life from that. So these are the kind of stuff that I do. Sometimes I'll take my opponent's strategy and use it against them. I'll take 2 key cards. Like, oh, that's your life gaining card, and that's your counter or your creature that gets counter every time you gain life. All right, let me steal those 2. So that way I can have that combo and strategy. So that's part of the board control aspect of the deck, is that I can take people's cards, break down the strategies through kill spells or just by taking their cards piece by piece, and then build their strategy on my side and then beat them with their own strategy, right? So this is, like I said, board control. Right? So there's a lot you can do. Very, very fun, versatile. Definitely give it a try. Already talked about the lands, and that's the end of the video. Check out the gameplays on the channel so you can see the deck in action.